Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a child psychiatrist and parent coach, and I'm also a mum. And in this video today, I'm looking at the most common advice I give to parents who are co-parenting. So I do get quite a lot of queries from parents who are struggling with co-parenting for different reasons. They often come to my group, the free Facebook group that I have, and ask questions in the lives there. Sometimes I've had them for individual coaching, and of course I do see a lot of this in clinical practice as well. And of course, if parents have found a perfectly good way to co parent, they would never come to me. But usually, the ones that do really have difficulties because the other parent is not really wanting to get on board with parenting in a consistent manner with them. There might be sort of really difficult emotional battles or undermining going on. The other parent might be saying really quite unpleasant things to the kids about you, and that all becomes really, really difficult. Or actually, when the children come back from being at that parent's house, there's a lot of stresses. They're all wound up, and there's a long period of time when everyone is very irritable, and you just feel like it's not having a great emotional impact on them, but on the other hand you don't want to prevent them going there. And it's that really difficult balance of how do you solve that problem of them of course needing to see the other parent, but seemingly that not having a great effect on them, and the fact that it's all inconsistent. So actually, perhaps you have specific rules, but the other parent doesn't, and then when they come back, your children just want to do what they were doing there, and you may end up feeling like they don't like you because actually you're more strict, and you get into those kind of emotional unpleasant imbalances really. And thinking of how to solve that can be so extremely stressful, especially if there's a lot of going there and back, because actually that means every time you transition there is a difficult period of time. So I think it's something that you can really get some great support with if you need it, but it is something that can be quite overwhelming if you're managing on your own. Can just leave you feeling quite guilty and like it's just really hard to resolve on your own. So one of the main things I say to parents who are struggling with this is that you only have control of what you do. Much as that's extremely annoying sometimes because you sort of wish you could get other people to do what you would like them to do, but the reality is you only have control of what you do, which means that there's really very little you can do to get the other parent to do the things that you think are right. And it's difficult. Ideally, of course, that's exactly what you do. Ideally, you would be able to speak to them and to find a way of co-parenting more consistently or in a way that's not undermining. And I guess the parents that come to me have probably tried that, and that probably hasn't worked for whatever reason it hasn't worked for. And if you are in that place where that's just not possible, then you do absolutely just have to accept that you can only control what you do. And what happens when your children are there is out of your control. But that doesn't mean you have to adjust your rules. It doesn't mean that you have to adjust what happens in your house and what the expectations are in your house just because what they experience at the other parent is different from what they experience with you. And even in your own home, all you can really do is control your own behaviour. You're only in charge of your own behaviour. You can't change exactly what your children do, but you can change what you do, how you set out your expectations for them, how you, if they are sort of struggling to transition, how you respond to that struggle, how mindful you are of that struggle, and what you do in that time to support them or just allow it to happen and kind of let them come out the other side. So which behaviors should you focus on when you're thinking about this and thinking, okay, well, what is it that I need to focus on? One of them is making it clear what is and isn't acceptable in your house, regardless of what is acceptable there at the other parent's house. And I think being very clear with your kids about that. What happens there happens there. I've thought about what you're asking, and I do not agree with that happening here. And that's just how it's going to be. And it might be that what happens there, you actually listen to it and you go, okay, well, I can take some of that on board, but those things, no, they're not going to be happening in here. And sticking with that and being open and honest about it. The second thing to focus on is making the house an emotionally safe environment, because if they're going to a different parent where perhaps things are emotionally charged or where they're saying unpleasant things, making it really hard for them to be stable, then actually when they come back, what they need is a stable environment where they can kind of process all that and come round from it. And because obviously, like, if they go there and their emotions have been heightened, they need to come back and let their emotions settle. And that's hard because it can mean like you're always on the bad end of things. Like you're always on the end where you're trying to manage their emotions and you're trying to help them be okay, and that it's actually caused by their experiences of the other parent. But if you are dedicated to making this work, and they're still keen to have a relationship with the other parent, and that's safe to do, there's very little you can do about that other than provide that safe environment, provide a place for it to be stable, for them to know they're okay, for them to know they can be upset if they need to be, for them to know what the limits are of getting angry and what is acceptable in terms of getting angry in your house. And also knowing that you still love them and that if they need your love and care, they can rely on it. If the transition between the homes is particularly hard, it is really worth negotiating to see if they can be decreased, because I know different parents work it differently, but some do have their children, changing from one house to the other every day or every other day. And it might be just that frequency of transition really makes things so hard for everyone. Whereas actually, if you had sort of half a week here and half a week there, or whole weeks or something like that, if you just decrease the number of transitions, yes, they would still get that period where they're feeling rotten or whatever it is they're feeling, but at least it wouldn't be quite so frequently and wouldn't be taking such a massive chunk of time. So it's completely worth trying to have that negotiation to see if there's a way of making it work. If what you notice is it's that time when they return home when things are really difficult. And if you know that those times are really bad, then it's just about expecting it and creating a kind of nurturing plan around that. When they return from the other parent, what's the routine? Are you waiting for them to return and you do something nurturing? You make them a cup of tea, you bring them a bath, you sit with them for a bit watching a bit of telly. If you know that's going to be a difficult time, plan for it. And especially if you can decrease the frequency of it, then it's easier to plan for them coming back and knowing that, the first couple of hours of the first evening is going to be a really tough evening. Therefore, you're not going to be planning anything difficult in that time. You're going to be planning something nurturing that time so that they know they've returned to a safe and, loving place. And that's where you want them to be, you want them to feel that. So those are the kinds of things I would support parents to focus on when they're really coming back to the idea that they can only manage their own behaviour rather than trying to manage other people's behaviours. And a lot of the things I've talked about there, they really do connect with the 4 essentials of balanced parenting. So there's that safe base, returning to an emotionally safe home, the sensitivity of picking up on when are the times that are difficult and how to support them in a sensitive way, if the transition is really hard, still having appropriate boundaries and expectations, so there still being some things that are just not okay to do, even if they are really upset, or that you have certain expectations and that's not going to shift regardless of what's happening with the other parent. And also a kind of dedication to nurturing them, even in times when they're clearly stressed and they're probably not going to get any positive feedback about that. But it's just showing them every time that you're still there, regardless of how it is for them. You're still there, you're ready to support them, you're ready to nurture them, even if you're not, getting any thanks for that. The 4 essentials are my way of thinking about balanced parenting, and it's something that you can really use in any kind of situation, and it's something I think about in the community group, and also it's what I use in a lot of my one-to-one practice as well. I think as a parent you can make a massive difference, and even if you are the only parent who's really taking any thought around this and the other parent is perhaps not wanting to engage with anything positive, even if it's just you being that stable person, you changing what you're doing to make sure that your child feels safe, it has a massive implication for the stability of that child and for how emotionally okay they feel, for them knowing that they have a safe place to be, and for them to be able to work out the relationship with the other parent while they know they can come back to a safe place. So it really is a big thing, and it's not, sometimes it can feel like what you do makes absolutely no difference, but as their parent you absolutely can make a really big difference to them. And if you're thinking that actually you'd really love some support with that, but you don't know exactly who to turn to or how to get support from that, do check out the last video in the series, which is looking at different professionals and what they might be helpful with. And of course, if you're thinking, well, I would love someone to support me in a positive way through this difficult time, please do get in touch if you want some individual coaching. Really love to help people get through these kinds of challenges.